Hey Brandon, how's it going?
I'm going good. I'm glad to be here with you, Matt.
Awesome, perfect, and it's good to have you because as you could see the previous episode, I'm trying to do this kind of series on the e-commerce exits because I believe that starting in the end goal in mind is ultimately gonna get you in the fastest way to where you want to go, right? So that's why we're having, I'm super excited to have you here. Brandon here is an e-commerce broker, so he helps e-commerce owners exit from their store and kind of pocket some massive cash immediately in exchange for all the hard work they've done over the years on their e-commerce business. So thanks a
All
lot for
right.
being here.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Awesome, Brandon. So let's start with something big. So what are um in your career as an e-com broker?
Yeah, it's very real. There's a lot of people quietly making lots of money in the industry, people who don't want to make noise and have the profile, I've had colleagues, make I have one colleague that's made over 15 million just in exits in a single month. To kind of put things into perspective. So, you have people chasing 100K, 1 million, 15 million in a month, just in exits. It's crazy. And, you have people every day that are making six-figure exits. It's very common. Even 100,000 to some people is a really big deal. So yeah, there's a lot of transactions, a lot of big money changing, and it's a growing industry for sure.
Yeah, this is definitely a serious game, right? Because like
Mhm.
sometimes people underestimate how much, that they even make a few K in profits in an e-commerce business, but that can translate into a six-figure exit if you do it right, right?
For sure. Absolutely.
Awesome. Perfect. So a lot of people may be interested in, in your story about how you got started as an ecom broker, and then we get
Mhm.
into all the kind of nitty gritty of and the juicy stuff of, what are the important factors to consider when selling a business and stuff like that. So would you mind telling us your story? How did you get into this?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always kind of been in sales since I was younger. I've always been like a people person. I've always liked being kind of the middle ground, someone to kind of like be the mediator and find, common ground between two different parties. I've just always kind of been like that with my personality. And so I naturally attracted to sales, and I've done big ticket, large ticket, small ticket. And I've always kind of been a middleman. And so, gosh, this is 2.5, 3 years ago now, where I had a friend who's like, "Hey, did you know anyone that would, buy a website if it's like making good money?" And I was like, "Yeah, I probably do." And so referred a couple people, and he sold his store. Cool. And he told his friend about it, and come back, "Hey, do you know someone else?" Like, "Yeah, maybe." And a couple months go by, and they actually end up doing a deal. And I was like, "Wait a minute, what? You guys are making money, and like I'm not." And after researching a little bit more, there's people who do it, but I can also see why there's so few people doing it, because it is definitely a hard craft to learn, and it takes some serious dedication. So I love it. I love being, the mediator and helping people, exit from their 9 to 5 lifestyle, but also helping people really build, a life for them and their families that, can support them in ways that otherwise wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, this is perfect. And so what are in the first place, let's start from this. What are the reasons that people decide to sell, and what are the reasons people buy e-commerce businesses instead of, for example, building one themselves?
hmm So I'll start with why people sell. And here's actually the unfortunate thing with people selling, is because 9 out of 10 people that go to sell their store are selling for the wrong reasons. So you have a lot of people that their store was doing good at some point. They were making, 100K, 10K per month in profit. And something goes wrong, their ad account gets shut down, or something catastrophic happens to prevent the store from making more sales, or something is impending on the business that's going to prevent it from making sales. And so that a lot of times you'll have owners think, okay, this is going to crash. Let me cash out, in some way so I can get this money that's left on the table. And it's really unfortunate because they didn't plan properly, and stores like that typically don't sell. You have to understand that these investors that are looking at these stores, the real investors, if you're trying to get $100,000 plus from your store, no one plays around with that kind of money. Like, this is hard earned cash that, they worked for. And so they're going to take it very seriously, and they're not going to throw it into anything without having the lowest amount of risk possible with the highest amount of upside. So unfortunately, I get a lot of people selling for the wrong reasons. I do get some people selling for, health reasons that can be legitimate. And then some people are, they did take the time to properly plan and they're looking to, make a solid exit for their stores. And those are few and far between. So I'm trying to spread awareness with that because, making 2 to 4 years of your profits back in one sale is a big deal. And I don't think a lot of owners realize that. So
Yeah,
that's on
yeah, yeah.
the seller side.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. As a marketer, I know how difficult it is to sell prevention. So I guess your work is not
yeah,
easy to help e-com
yeah,
owners get ready for things like that.
right.
What about the buyers, the investors?
hmm So I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but you have some people you have different categories of buyers. You have a lot of people trying to exit their 9 to 5 lifestyle. You have everyday people. You have doctors, professionals that are trying to, break into an investment that's going to be a stable source of cash flow profit so that they can retire. You have some people that are already owners. They have an FBA store, they have a Shopify store, and they want to take on something else because they have a working system, a working team in place where they can take on another acquisition and, scale their profits and build more wealth. You also have some partnerships. You have some groups that all they do is just invest in investments and build their group or partnership. So I see that as well. There's a myriad of different reasons why people buy stores, but the end goal is always just to make more money. So that's it, plain and simple.
That makes sense. And so you mentioned that that some stores are not sellable, right? You mentioned some of the reasons that prevent the stores from being sellable. So if, let's say, if I owned an e-commerce business, how do I know if my store is even sellable?
Yeah. So I try to keep it really simple because people overcomplicate this. There's 4 things that you want to think about. You want to think about how much time the business takes or is going to take your potential buyer. You need to think about how much profit your business is currently making and will make in the future. You want to think about how sustainable that is with or without you in the picture, or the longevity of your products or service or whatnot. And you also want to think about the amount of skill that it takes for you to run the store versus like someone else who could potentially buy your store. So those 4 core things: time, profit, sustainability, and skill are the main things that you should be thinking about when trying to figure out what your store is worth. There's a lot of times you have a lot of these, drop shippers. They find winning products, 3 to 4 months, they fall off, they got to find new ones. And so they do this, they've done this for 2-3 years or whatnot. They're like, oh, I've got a store, it's worth, $250,000 because the valuation tool I found on the site told me so. And they go to sell it and no one's buying it. The thing is, when investors are looking at buying a store or a website, they're thinking, how am I going to get at least my investment back, and how do I make more? And if you have a site that's just fizzling off every 3-4 months with your winning products, then they have to find those winning products. Do they have the skill to do that? Do they have the expertise? Do they have the team? So a lot of people overlook these 4 core things, and that's where a lot of these problems go wrong as far as what your store is worth or having a valuable store.
So it sounds like there's a lot about the barriers to entry and whatnot, right? So it seems that a branded store would sell definitely better than some e-commerce businesses, right? Than some, sorry,
Absolutely.
dropshipping businesses.
hmm Investors are thinking, how much risk is there in this for me, and how much upside is there in it? So when you have something that's branded, it's trademarked, patented, whatever, that's a lot more security than, hey, I'm drop shipping this, home niche product that anyone can buy off AliExpress. Even if you have everything outsourced, how easy is it for someone to just pick up and copy what you're doing? Because even if you have things trademarked and protected, it's still not going to prevent someone from halfway across the world from copying you, but it's still more protection. So propriety is definitely a big portion of that as well.
So what are some simple tactics or strategies that business owners can implement to kind of make their business more sellable and increase the valuation?
Mm-hmm. So there's 3 main things. When I talk to when I talk to most of my owners, I see 3 typical problems. The first one being automation. So if you're running an e-commerce store, Shopify, FBA, or whatnot, you need to think about the processes, that the little small tedious things that don't require a ton of skill or expertise that can be outsourced. A lot of people already talk about this, having VAs, having a customer service team in place. It's very important because the less amount of time it takes for your investor to run the store, the better it's going to be. The more attractive it's going to look. So focusing on automation on that end, but also a big one that I'm seeing is on the marketing end. And this is, why I'm thankful to have you as a contact, because automating your marketing process is a big, big deal. If you don't, hey, let's say you have a Shopify store and you're running all the ads for it, right? When you go to sell your store, you're essentially limiting yourself to just people who know how to run Facebook ads themselves or have a team that can do that. So you really narrow your options down, because, that's not in place. So the right thing to do is to, get a team in place where they can run the marketing for you, have a good track record, a steady, healthy history of 6 months, 12 months, even better, where people can look back and be like, yeah, I've been working with Matt for, 12 months. This is their results. Like, great. That's not going to change. I don't have to worry about it. Excellent. You can even include that in the contract as well, like have a work arrangement where you would stay on for the store for 1 to 2 years, that would be even better. So the marketing side is a huge thing to, outsource as well.
Yeah. So this is what I noticed in one of our clients' sale of their business, right? That he actually had this in the agreement with the owner that you need to maintain the store as it is, and that includes the marketing team that's managing it. Which of course it's helpful for us, but I guess it's beneficial for the new owner as well. And I mean, smart investors, it seems to me that they understand that like don't mess up what's working already, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of touching on some other things that definitely help out, knowing your numbers. So a lot of these, you would be surprised how many owners don't know their bottom line. They don't know exactly how much they're making, how much they're losing, how much they're spending on certain expenses. So, profit loss statement is one of the first things that investors are going to want to look at. One of the first things your broker is going to want to look at. So, if you're not at the level where you can have an accounting team or, a specialist do that for you, at least make sure you're taking the time to have your books in order. Because if you don't have your books in order, like, who knows how much you're really making? And if you don't know how much you're making, no investor is going to buy your store. So really stay on top of your financials. And I think I'll get into tax planning a little bit later, but yeah, if you have a bigger store, looking at the taxes and the implications of selling, a $250,000, $500,000 store is definitely a really big deal too. But we'll probably get into that a little later.
Yeah. So how do I even know how much a business is worth? Is there a simple process that's to calculating the valuation, or how does it work?
This is the hard part, and I get so many questions regarding, hey, this is my store, how much it's worth. And you need to kind of think of it like a car. So imagine if I message you like, hey Matt, I've got a car, how much is it worth? And you're like, cool. I got a lot of questions about the car. What kind of car, how much miles, what condition, the history. So all these things you have to know to be able to create an accurate picture of how much your business is worth. One of the big problems I'm seeing is you have a lot of platforms, a lot of brokerages that are using valuation tools, and you type in the numbers, they ask you 4 different questions or so, and like, oh, your store is worth $300,000. Excellent. Like, let me go sell it. And a lot of these are used as lead generation, mostly, and they assume a lot of factors. It's assuming that you have all these things automated and that everything's just peachy. And usually when you get on a call with them, it's just not the matter. So, don't believe in valuation tools because it assumes a lot of things. Reach out to a broker or a group that specializes in, whatever type of business you're looking to sell. If it's a Shopify business, look for someone who has experience with that. If you're looking at an FBA business, look for someone who has a history of that, because it is an art in itself to be able to create a proper valuation on a store.
Gotcha. Yes, so definitely, because I've had a look at one of the valuation sites, and it seems, like, how can you know everything about my business and how much it's worth based on a few simple questions, right? So
sure.
so let's talk about the process then. If I decided to sell my business, what does it look like? How long will it take? What are some of the mistakes and pitfalls to avoid on the way to, not to lose money or time? Because I
For
know it can
sure.
be quite a lengthy process.
Yeah. So, and here's the biggest thing for you guys who are listening or watching. The biggest thing I want you to take away is if you have a successful store and you're really planning an exit, being preemptive about it, being proactive about it is the biggest thing. You could take a half a year, a whole year just preparing for an exit if you want to do it right. And the reason why I want you to take it so seriously is like, we'll fight for that extra $100, extra 1,000 bottom line profit, right? But we're talking a solid exit can make you 2 to 4 times of your yearly profits when you go to sell it. And so it's like, if we're going to fight that hard for a little bit, like really need a plan for the big picture, if you're trying to make that successful. So, as far as when you're trying to plan for that, you need to make sure you have your financials together. So get together with your accountant, get your own books together if you're not big enough for that. Make sure that your numbers are spick and span. The reason you want to do this is, especially when you're looking to sell your store for 6 figures and above or whatnot, these investors are going to look at your figures, and little things become very big things when it comes down to the line. When you're getting close to closing a deal, a little $1,000 mess up here, $1,000 mess up there can really throw off the trust. So you don't want to be dishonest in your figures. You don't want to be dishonest about any aspect of your business, because trust can make or break a deal and ruin your reputation, ruin potential leads. So make sure you have that in order. Know your finances. If you don't know who to reach out to, ask around. People in the industry know who the professionals are and they can refer you to someone. So getting that together, giving yourself the proper amount of time, I get a lot of people messaging me and, they're like, hey, I've got this store. It's doing really well. Cool. You think you could sell it in, 2-3 weeks? Like, absolutely not. It takes 2 to 3 weeks just to prepare your store properly. So depending on the size of the store, this can take like a month up to a year. So if you have a decent sized store, expect 4 to 6 months to make a proper exit, and then expect it to take a lot of work. We take a lot of hassle out of it for the buyer, or for the seller, sorry. But there's still a lot of work that's involved with making an exit with the store. So be prepared, be ready mentally, and make sure that you have the time and take the time to really commit to making an exit for your store. So I'd focus on those 2 things, not having wild expectations. I looked at a business valuation tool. It says 2 million. I want 2 million. And sometimes explaining that it's just not worth that sometimes is hard for some owners. So don't be unrealistic. Be willing to be flexible with real offers, because, 180,000 real dollars can be a life changer for a lot of people. And sometimes people just get greedy when it comes down to it. So keep a level head throughout the process. I think those are my 3 big ones for that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so it seems to me that it could be useful for some owners to get their business evaluated and then kind of make a game plan on how to increase that valuation, right? Is that also something that you help?
Absolutely. Yeah. Here's the benefit of when you're talking to a legitimate broker or group that specializes in this. Like I eat, sleep, breathe this. There's nothing else I eat, sleep, breathe. This is like my life, right? I am fully dedicated to this. I spend, hours and hours every single day just getting better at my craft. And so when you reach out to us, a lot of brokers are not going to charge you for consultation looking at your business. I can look at a profit loss statement and tell you what a lot of investors are going to see. So reach out to someone who's credible. Say, hey, this is where I'm at. I want to exit. If you want to exit for $500,000, where do I need to be? Well, this is where you need to be. This is what you need to work on. Tell me the processes that are going on in your business. These are the things that you want to work on to be able to open up more offers for your store. The more offers, the higher the sale price, the higher the multiple. So, getting this automation in place, making sure everything's spick and span, really clean. Those are the essential things that you want to look out for when you're doing that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And okay, so just to recap on the process. So first, we're getting the valuation of the business. Then we're preparing some game plan on how to make it more sellable. Then we're getting the numbers right, starting to get the offers from the potential investors, right? Tackling the objections, prepping the store, right? Mm-hmm. Is there anything else on the process?
There's a lot of little steps in between that.
Yeah.
I think those are the major steps. I would say 70 to 80% of selling a store is in the preparation. And this is why it's so important. Just making sure that all the things are taken care of. You want to make sure that all the answers are provided before you even go to launch the store. One thing you'll notice with
Yeah.
people who are doing it right in the brokerage industry is they're going to make sure they have all the tools and all the answers ready for investors, so that when someone comes in, a qualified investor, I've got $300,000 to drop. Here's the proof on your store. I want to see your domain proof. I want to see the results with this marketing agency. I want to see proof that you're depositing these profits into your accounts. I want to see your supplier agreement. You want all these things ready before you even get to it, because the moment you tell that investor, hey, no problem, I'll get it back to you, give me 24 hours, they're looking at dozens and dozens of businesses out there. And, they can pass you up just as much as a real estate buyer looking for a house can. So you need to have all those things, prepared ahead of time for sure.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. Awesome. So, but in the first place, one thing that's unclear to me is because it seems that there are a lot of broker sites. You mentioned something about their valuation tools, and they're brokers like yourself. But like, why wouldn't the owners just go and sell themselves? How does it work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is kind of a gap in the industry, honestly, because you have brokers who really know what they're doing. We only work on commission typically, and I would encourage you to only work with brokers that work on commission for just, as a heads up. So because there's a lot of stores that aren't quite big enough for brokers, but are still in good shape. Like I've looked at stores where, they're making $2,000-3,000 a month consistently, have great automation in place, have a great evergreen product, and it's beautiful. But I have to dump dozens and dozens of hours of my time into marketing it. And it's just not worth it. So, my personal minimum, I need 150,000 at least on the list price for me to make it worth my time. And so you have platforms like, Flippa, Shopify Exchange, some of these other sites where you can list your websites for sale. But the problem is, like, you're jumping into a whole different realm that requires a whole different set of knowledge. Just think about the Shopify seller. Oh, I'm going to go do Amazon FBA. Like, it's a whole different critter. And so, even if you're going to tackle it alone, which I only recommend if you're kind of at the 60,000 below mark, if you're going to tackle it alone, you can still utilize the resources that are available on the net. You can still get some good pointers. You could talk to a broker. I don't know how much time they'll get you, but they'll at least, give you some right ideas on your listing or whatnot. What I do personally, I do some services where, like, I will write up a summary for someone, give them the forms that they need and some other essential things so they could sell it on themselves. Like sometimes I sell that for like a package. But a legitimate broker is, going to need to make more money than that. So that's where kind of the catch 2020 is. The thing is, when you're selling over, 6 figures or above, there's a lot of things that you need to plan for, but also a lot of things that you have to have prepared. The amount of preparation, like I said, 70-80% of the sale is preparation, and most owners don't have a clue what any of that stuff is. And if you're really looking to make the highest exit, like, you need a broker. You might get lucky, sell to someone for a low multiplier, and you might be happy with it, but there's so many things that can go wrong. Legally can go wrong, tax-wise can go wrong. I've seen people process the transaction the wrong way and lose everything. They lost every single dime that they did on the deal.
Wow.
Yeah. Imagine trying to sell your store that's worth, over $100,000, and you get the money. Something happens because the paperwork was wrong. They get it all back plus legal expenses. It's a mess. I could share hours of just horror stories with that. So don't gamble with your money. Don't gamble for on what you built. Make sure that you're utilizing the resources that are available to you, and don't be afraid to reach out to brokers, because no one's going to get mad at you for reaching out to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about the different broker models, right? So how do you choose a broker if for somebody who's new to the whole process? Like, what are the different kind of, I don't know, compensation models? You mentioned something about the commissions. There's probably some different models to that. And like, what are the things to avoid when choosing a broker as well?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different, everyone's heard of Flippa, everyone's heard of Shopify Exchange, and there's a lot of different platforms that are kind of popping out now that's making selling your business a lot more accessible to people. So those are cool. Like I said, do your own due diligence in, how to sell a store. There's some good free resources out there. Pick the brains of people who do it professionally. But you also have like, big dedicated brokerages. You got, Empire Flippers, you got FE International, you've got Website Closers, all these big dogs. And, what I would say is whatever your business is, make sure that you inspect whatever you're expecting, inspect it. So if you have a Shopify brand that specializes in kid stuff, when you're talking to these brokers, there's a bunch of brokers. Take your time. Reach out to these brokers. Hey, I have a Shopify store that's doing this much in yearly profit. It's in this niche. And here's some other details. Have you sold anything similar to this? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. Whatever they say, great. Could you show me like a screenshot or show me an example of what you're talking about with that? Inspect it. Always make sure that you're going the extra lanes to just make sure that there's concrete proof that they have experience with that, because there's some brokers that specialize with FBA stores, but they're clueless on how to sell an affiliate site or vice versa. So just make sure that you're working, with the right person, and make sure that they've been in the industry, they know what they're talking about. So those are the big things that I would recommend as far as, selling your own store, finding the right broker. I would say as far as compensation models, I mentioned earlier, just to work with a broker that works on like a success fee. A lot of these platforms like won't charge you until like once your site sells, which is, it can be kind of a double-edged sword, because like if you sell on Flippa, it's a 15% fee, I believe, last time I checked. That's exactly how much a typical broker is. So, if you have like a store that's over 6 figures, listing it on Flippa versus a broker with a huge network and has a variety of marketing methods is going to bring you much more money than Flippa ever will. So those are big ones. What you want to avoid is brokers that are going to charge you. Typically, I'm not saying this for everyone, because I know some brokers that do this, they're excellent brokers, but avoid people that are charging you month to month to list something and don't have a success fee or something like that. If someone is making money off of your subscription or monthly payments, that should be a huge red flag that, maybe it's not in their best interest to sell your store quickly. So I would say avoid those, and the industry standard is pretty much going to be a success fee. So also ask about their success rate. How successful are you at selling the stores that you're assigned? Ask about their tips. If I was going to sell it, what would you suggest? Listen to their suggestions. If they don't make sense or they don't have much to say, that also tell you a little bit about the broker as well. And ask around, people on Facebook, or, if you're on the LinkedIn community, ask around, because a lot of these people have been, they've worked with some people that you may know of. So don't be afraid to do kind of like a person check, on someone, and just ask, your contacts, your network.
Absolutely. Always due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Cool. I mean, is there anything else that you feel is important when it comes to the whole selling the business part? Because I've got a few kind of more general questions for you, but before we go that, let's exhaust the topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like I said before, being preemptive and proactive about it is like the biggest deal. What I want to say for the viewers that are thinking about making an exit for like 6 figures or more, you need to really look at the tax implications. I've seen a lot of deals kind of go bad because they didn't properly plan for their taxes. Make sure you're doing your taxes on your business, because there's some people trying to sell their business, they're not doing taxes. Makes it very, very hard to sell, if not possible. I don't sell non-tax stores. Anyways, but make sure that you're planning for that. Get with your tax specialist and find out how, to best structure yourself so that Uncle Sam, or whatever country you're in, is going to take the least amount of money possible from your pocket, because it's very real to make, a $250,000 exit and Uncle Sam just takes 33% of that, so that's the situation you want to avoid. Imagine losing 33%, right? So definitely plan for that, and make sure you have your financials together. And above all, be honest with your broker, be honest with whoever you work with. I think every person I talk to in some way or another has lied to me. If you lie to us, it's not helping you. It's just making things harder for you. So just be straight up and tell us what the situation is. Hey, our ad account got blocked 2 months ago for this reason. Okay, cool. I don't have to. The last thing you want is an investor who has money ready to buy your business, and they find out that this ad account was like blocked, and kills the deal, and you can never do business because you broke their trust. So be honest.
Yeah. Super important. Like, how else can you do business, especially remotely, right? If you can't trust the
Absolutely.
other person.
Goodness. Right.
Okay, wow. Okay, cool. So some of the fun stuff is ahead of us now.
Cool.
Do you see any kind of interesting trending e-com niches right now from the e-commerce store owners that come to you that the buyers are just queuing up to buy?
Mm-hmm. So what I've seen in the industry is things are moving slow. So, Amazon FBA stores were popular 2 years ago. They're extremely popular right now. So Amazon FBA stores, right? But you don't see a lot of these like new things coming on the scene that gain a lot of popularity. And the reason is because the industry, like digital acquisitions as a whole, websites as a whole, is just looked at as a risky business. It's high risk. It's considered a high risk investment. And so, when something new pops up, investors don't really like that. Like, okay, I know Amazon FBA. Amazon's going to be around forever. They've been forever. So that's why they're growing so much as a popular investment. Amazon affiliate sites, super popular. So these things that have longevity are definitely going to stick around. It's what they're looking for. Sorry, could you repeat one more time the question?
Yeah. So
Got off
what are
track
some
there.
of the interesting e-commerce niches? But I think what you mentioned is important, right? So this is
Yeah,
interesting that so you're saying that investors would prefer, for example, Amazon FBA businesses over Shopify stores even. Is that
exactly.
correct?
That's not, well, it's
Hmm.
not exactly true, but things that have been established in the market, Shopify's been around for a minute, FBA's been around for a minute. But like, let's say I'm looking at a content site and it talks about TikTok. I have a content site about TikTok. Cool. TikTok is kind of new. Is it going to be around forever? I don't know. Am I going to dump six figures into it? No. So you need to think about like things that are new, things that are just like kind of like fad topics. No investor wants to buy fad stuff because it's very unstable, very risky as an investment. So that's why with the niches, you see, home and garden, you see, the kids niche, or, like backpack niche or whatever. Those are things that are stable that are probably not going to fade away. So investors typically don't like new. They like established and proven things. So keep that in mind.
Risky. Yeah, so that actually is kind of sparked the question in my head in terms of diversification and the traffic sources. So from the marketing standpoint, what would investors look at when you see, for example, a store that's heavily dependent on Facebook ads
Yeah.
versus a store that has some multiple traffic sources? Like how does that impact store valuation?
Yeah, so this is a really big deal, and I'm glad that you brought it up because a lot of people overlook it, especially like when people come to sell, because and there's a huge variety of investors, but Facebook ads really well, kind of what the history has been like for the past few years, and a lot of investors look at Facebook ads as volatile. They're like, oh, ad accounts being shut down left and right, this and that.
Yeah.
So it's very important to diversify. You got Google ads. Things that can be automated. So, people, oh, I do Instagram shout outs. I work with influencers. Okay, that's cool. How are you doing it? Is it relying on, the current owner with their relationships with these guys? Or is it an automated process where they're just dumping a budget and it automatically, funnels out to these influencers? So you want to diversify, but not in a way that complicates things for the typical investor. So another example, like you're a marketing agency. Doesn't matter if you're doing Facebook ads, YouTube, Google ads, or whatnot. If the fact that you're handling it and have been handling it for the past year, that's music to an investor's ears. But if they're like, hey, I'm doing all these ads by myself and we're doing all these different sources of ads, it's kind of like, oh, so I need to have someone that could do all that, or I have to do it myself. That's when it becomes a problem. But
Yeah.
traffic diversification is a very big deal, and always SEO, organic traffic, is king. Anything that doesn't have to be driven with, ad spend is always going to be king, because they can rely on it and it just doesn't disappear as quickly as, ad spend does. So that's
Yeah, so
something else to think about.
this is super interesting, and this is literally the first thing that happens with the client who sold the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the new owner came on board, literally the first thing that we started doing for them as well is the SEO, right? So we very quickly built a content team and those guys, and internalized a smaller kind of SEO agency, and now they're handling the content and kind of building up the organic traffic, because the owner told me that this is exactly what he wants to do. He wants to diversify. He wants to increase the valuation of the business, because
Yes.
he's looking to sell down the line after the store is scaled up even more, right? So this
Right.
is really interesting. And what about this? What do investors prefer? Do they prefer to have, let's say, store being managed by like multiple different marketing teams, for example, somebody doing Facebook or Google and SEO, or all those services integrated into one holistic team that's kind of synergistic and is taking care of everything?
So this kind of goes back to the four main things that I was talking about with time. The amount of time it's going to take to coordinate with four different teams is going to be a lot more than just coordinating with one agency that manages four different things. So yeah, going back to that core deal, it's going to be the guy who has like one agency. The more simple it is, the better. Investors don't like complicated investments. And so, getting an agency that knows how to run different forms of traffic is going to be better. Even if it's just like one umbrella team and they have, different subunits or whatnot, as long as it's under one entity, like that's going to be music to an investor's ears versus, oh, I got to work with four different contacts just on the marketing side, because you still got to deal with suppliers and, customer service teams and like all this other stuff. So yeah, think about time.
Yeah, I see a huge benefit to that. You limit the amount of meetings and things like that. The only thing to kind of look out for is like whether this team can actually deliver those different channels, right? So quality is important, because some agencies, what I see them doing is they just keep adding on those different services, and then the quality just drops massively, right? So this
Right.
is this is like we're definitely slow pacing things, but at the same time, like I see the biggest problem when the business owners, they're just adding different teams and they're skeptical about like kind of even building the new service and testing it out with their existing agency, right? But this is actually, as you mentioned, there's a massive benefit to like having a team that's like has a vested interest in growing your business and evolving with you, right? And building all those different services around this. So yeah, definitely, I think that this is the way to go, and I recommend this to all the business owners.
Absolutely. So one other thing I want to add in there is, when they get into the marketing, if you have like, your ads outsourced or whatnot, they're going to check the history of this. They're going to see, okay, how much are the profit margins? How much money are these people really bringing me? Is that margin increasing or is it decreasing? And if it is, why? And they're going to get into every single bit of it. Like if you think about if you had $200,000-$300,000 on the line, you're going to check out every nook and cranny of a business. And so you want to make sure everything is stable, established, healthy before you go to market. So if you're going to test new sources of traffic, that's fine. Just make sure you have it well established before you go and try to sell your store.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so in this case, pre-sale, when you're deciding to sell,
Mm-hmm.
consistency is more important than kind of than testing the new things, right?
Absolutely. Consistent, like I said, they want the most amount of money, most amount of upside, least amount of time, least amount of risk. So, think about what that's going to look like if you were outside of the situation, what that's going to look like to you. So, yeah, absolutely. Think about it from the
Gotcha.
investor's point of view.
All right. So then, next question to you: is there any book that you can recommend on the topic of valuation, selling an e-com business?
Yes, absolutely. And I think even if you're not looking to exit your business, at any time, you should still be building your business as something that you could walk away from that's still going to build, something that requires the least amount of you as possible. Because when you remove yourself from the situation, not only are you a better owner of the business, but you also have a much more valuable business and it's easier to scale. So one book that I absolutely recommend to everybody is a book called Built to Sell and I think it's by Mike McCallowicz, something like that. Mike.
Yeah, I
Built
love
to
that book.
Sell.
It's perfect.
It's a great book, and it just very plain English. It explains the things that you want to look out as an owner. So even if you got to read it 2-3 times, you can use that as the Bible for, setting up a valuable, profitable business. And, there's other online guides and stuff as well. But, when it comes to the basics, that is a great, great book that I could recommend.
Nice, nice, nice. And what's your favorite e-commerce product?
My favorite e-commerce product. That's a fun question. So I'm in love with, there's this thing I found on Amazon. It's called a Cyraflex. Have you ever heard of it before? Cyraflex shower head. Okay. It is like this cheap, like little plastic shower head. And I think it was made in Italy or France or something like that. Apparently, like when you're in the United States, they have these different water restrictions where only a certain amount of water can come out through your shower head. And in France or Italy or whatever, like they don't have those restrictions. And so they sell this product made from there on the US market. And this thing has no restrictions and it just dumps water on you. It's this ugly looking shower head, and you screw it on. It's made of plastic, and you turn the faucet on and it just dumps water on you. And it was like the most joyous thing I've ever experienced in a shower. It's just awesome. Just when you have that much water falling on you, you're just, the water bill sucks, but I promise you, it's like $12. Go check it out, Cyraflex. And yeah, it might be something
Super
cool
satisfying. I've got an
it's
add-on
so
for that.
awesome.
I've got an add-on for that for you. You know how
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're using any of the water filters for drinking water, but it turns out that actually, the majority of the water your body absorbs actually comes from the shower. So that's why I got this little thing that you plug into the shower head as well. It kind of filters out the chlorine from it. So if you want to dump
Wow.
that much water, then you better get some of that as well. Awesome,
Very
awesome, awesome.
interesting. Yeah, I'll have to
Cool.
check that
So now,
out.
question. So if somebody wants to ask you some questions about brokering the e-commerce business, how to increase valuations and whatnot,
Yes.
how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm always on social media because I do a lot of business through it. So you can find me on Facebook. You can look up my name, Branden Yamada. Branden is spelled D-E-N, Yamada. You could look us up, eCom Exchange. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, our website, ecommerce-exchange.com, because the person with the original domain doesn't want to sell it to me. But yeah, we have an online form that you can fill out, and I can reach out to you through email. But yeah, Facebook is always good. LinkedIn's always good, either or.
Awesome, awesome, perfect. I feel like there was so much value in
I try.
this podcast because because like you just dumped it all there. This is nice. I love when people share their knowledge. Some people just want to stay secretive with their tactics and strategies and just reserve it for like their own profits. But like this is what I love about the people that we work with, is that like everybody is just super value focused, and that's what it is, right? That's where the game is. Just share, and the market is abundant, the wealth is abundant.
That's right.
Let's not restrain.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot,
Hey, thanks
Branden.
for
Super
having me.
super cool to have you here,
I
and
appreciate it.
best
And
of
reach
luck
out.
in 2020.
Yes, you too. And thank you for the viewers that are watching and listening. Ask me any questions if you have any, guys.
Thanks a lot for staying till the very end. This was e-commerce scaling strategies by Sales Genomics, brought to you by Matt from Sales Genomics. If you're interested in more tips and strategies on how to scale your e-commerce business, visit our Facebook group called E-commerce Scaling Strategies by Sales Genomics, or follow us on social media.